To begin, I would like to invite Ms. Deeohn Ferris, President and CEO of Institute for Sustainable Communities. Deeohn is an environmental lawyer, racial social justice practitioner, and a system thought leader. She began her career at EPA, founded the Sustainable Community Development Group, and was the VP for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at the National Audubon Society. Sorry. So over to you, Ms. Ferris.
Thank you so much, Mega. Greetings, everyone. I'm Deeohn Ferris, President of the Institute for Sustainable Communities. On behalf of the Institute, I would like to thank the Rockefeller Foundation, the Nudge Foundation, Chase, and all of the partners of this Charcha event for providing such a lively platform to advance these important conversations. I'm thrilled to be invited to open this important conversation today and introduce our esteemed panel of experts. First, let me take a few moments to set the stage for our conversation. At the Institute for Sustainable Communities, our mission is helping local leaders and communities around the world address environmental, economic, and social impacts and building a healthy and peaceful future shaped and shared by all. We're aligned in spirit and in vision with the Charcha ideals, and I'd like to take a moment to talk about our alignment. Over the last 30 years, the Institute has led more than 130 transformative, community-driven, and locally driven projects in 31 countries, and all of them have helped surface locally relevant and internationally scalable solutions. We convene and collaborate with cross-sector interdisciplinary stakeholders whose decisions, budgets, investments, and power affect the environment, community health, and resiliency. We pinpoint the communities, the countries, the governments, the regions, the cities, and major corporate brands that are grappling with the most greenhouse gas and pollution emissions. We prioritize the places and populations where energy efficiency, natural resources conservation, technological and financial interventions will produce the most benefits. Keeping an eye on large-scale, meaningful impact, the Institute has worked with local partners, assisting them in many ways. For example, we've helped over 60,000 factories operationalize environmental governance standards. We've supported 150,000 smallholder and women farmers in learning and implementing regenerative agriculture practices. We facilitated climate action planning in more than a dozen large cities and 500 counties, mobilizing over 130 million US dollars in public and private capital. In the light of this work, and in the light of the Institute's mission, we are thrilled to join the Rockefeller Foundation and the partners of this event today. The release of the United Nations IPCC report this week and the call for code red by 14,000 scientists alerts the world once again with a clarion call to tackle the urgent and immediate causes and effects of climate change. As we know, India and South Asia are among the most vulnerable to adverse impacts of climate change. There are large coastal populations and diverse climatic zones with significant dependencies on monsoon-led agrarian economies and relatively inequitable development. The fact is that moving away from fossil fuels and increasing electrification by tapping into cleaner sectors is easier said than done, especially when it comes to population groups that are the hardest hit by climate change impacts. As we know, more than 300 million people lack access to a clean, continuous, high-quality supply of electricity, and that leaves rural populations no choice except to turn to unsustainable fossil fuel sources. Additionally, immense opportunities in the rural economy remain unfulfilled due to lack of reliable clean energy supply. For example, less than 10% of India's farm produce is processed for further productive uses, compared to over 90% in developed economies, and that results in high amounts of food waste and loss. Apropos of this conversation today, energy access is an important nexus between equitable economic development and climate change mitigation. Distributed renewable energy, or in simpler terms, renewable energy-based mechanisms that are local, off-grid, and closer to source location, look like solutions that carry the additional benefit of the resulting technological advancements, which in turn could support a variety of revenue-generating applications, including food processing, textiles, cold chains, spices, and more. Distributed renewable energy, or DRE, looks like a very important tool to advance equitable climate action and sustainable development with multiple benefits across farming and other livelihoods, including enhanced access to reliable energy sources and reductions in environmental impacts. This session will lay the foundation for how energy access can foster greater shared prosperity. And I'm glad to say that's entirely in keeping with what I believe is our shared vision of energy for all, energy development, and energy for equitable climate actions. We have an eminent group of panelists gathered here contributing deep expertise on how we can advance energy democracy. We'll hear from them about local governance and leadership best practices and the ways that distributed energy can transform villages into enterprising hubs. We'll hear about financing and markets and ways that enhanced access to capital and business models can boost micro enterprises and service demand, and in turn address equitable development opportunities. I am so pleased today to introduce this esteemed panel of experts. You will hear from Dr. Debajit Palit, Director of the Energy and Resources Institute. We'll hear from Mr. Jaideep Mukherjee, Head of Smart Power India, a Rockefeller Foundation-driven entity. We'll hear from Ms. Smita Rakshi, Director of Clean Energy and Climate Action at Social Alpha, and leaders in the distributed renewable energy space, Mr. Vijay Bhaskar, Managing Director at Hamara Grid. And now I'll hand it back to my colleague, Megha, to open this discussion. Thank you, Megha.
Thank you. We missed out on Mr. Advait Joshi, so just that too. Thank you, Ms. Ferris, for elaborating on the significance of DRE initiatives in India, especially in the rural regions where DRE can be the tool to meet climate ambition while encouraging social equity and climate justice too. I would now like to put up another poll on the current status of DRE as we go to the panelists going forward. So the question is, which sector, according to you, is currently implementing a majority of DRE initiatives in India? Few minutes for this also. Yes, the guess is quite right. So currently, the household and the residential sector are using DRE systems most in India, and there's a lot of scope to go to the other sectors also.